Shall we move on?
Please.
That brings us into the CEO report, and I am going to make the decision to switch the order here and go into the CVRA and redistricting map scenarios and so forth. Again, welcome back, Justin and Andrew and Nicole, and David will be here along here shortly. But Justin, if you could perhaps recap where we left off last month, what's happened, and I know the board's very interested in seeing some of your magic relative to some of the lines and so forth in real time to see how some of this all breaks out. So with that, I'm just handing it off to you, Justin. Thank you again.
Thank you, David. In terms of the magic, we'll say it's Andrew Bishop's magic, who's behind the scenes. And just to recap where we left off, we shared with you 4 different map scenarios, 2 that we prepared and you've seen now twice. In addition, there are 2 other map scenarios, one from a local resident, Zach Griggy, and we've, I believe some of you have already seen that. And then there was another map scenario that was submitted through the districtor application that the district has. So that is where we're at this point. There was a request at the last meeting that we'd be able to see the boundaries a little bit closer, and we fully understand that. Given the large geographic area, we thought the best way to accomplish that, to be able to show you the detail that you would like, is to have an interactive map. And so we have that tonight to again, just go into some of those boundaries where you may have questions. There was also a request that we look at the number of registered voters based on each of the scenarios and how that breaks down per trustee area. So we have that as well. And if it's appropriate, I may start there just with the summary that we have of the registered voters. This is taken from the 2020 general election, so the most recent election that covers all of the jurisdiction. And I'll just share with you what we have. This is obviously this shows all of the scenarios together here. Just my bit of commentary on this. We would expect to see differences because what we know is that there's concentrations of certain demographic folks that will have different characteristics, whether they're older or younger, whether there are certain racial or ethnic groups that skew one way or the other, as well as there may be aging communities, and there may be communities that, again, have younger folks. And so that may contribute to the fact that there would be differences in the number of registered voters. Citizenship status is also something that will affect us as well. What we've included previously is an estimate of the number of eligible voters as opposed to those that actually registered. And those eligible voters are based, again, off of qualifying based on age and also their citizenship status. So we've included that in each one of the scenarios, so you have that as a reference point as well. As interesting as this information is, I do want to just emphasize the fact that our task is to balance each one of these areas based on total population. So that's counting each and every person as opposed to a subset of that. This, to the extent we can accomplish that as well, that would be a desirable outcome if that's what one person was looking at, but that is not one of our requirements here. I can pause and take any questions on this, or I can proceed and walk through the map scenarios that we have once again.
Please do that. Yeah, just if you don't mind, could you just focus on the 2 new ones?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. And so this map, what we're calling scenario 3, is the map that was submitted by Zach Griggy, again, a local resident and college student with a knack for GIS. And so he submitted this particular map, and I'm just going to highlight some of the major things and then go into the zoomed in version of the map that we have here. The variance for this particular scenario is 8.5%. So it's below our 10% threshold that you'll recall is the legal presumption for being population balanced. The largest trustee area is area 3 in this case, and the smallest trustee area is area 7. Just to quickly reorient everyone to the map, you'll see up in the northeastern portion of the district in the Novato area, there is the yellow color there. That is trustee area 1. Trustee area 2 is just to the south, and that is in the red color. Just southeast of there is trustee area 3 in green. Just west of there, there is a blue color, not to be confused with the aqua or teal color, and that blue color is for trustee area 4. Just south of that, there is a pinkish color, which represents trustee area 5. Trustee area 6 is in a tan color down at the southern portion of the district. And then trustee area 7 covers the coastal and mountainous areas along the western portion of the district. Just again, to point out some of the key characteristics, at least as we see this, trustee area 1 covers the eastern portion of Novato. And trustee area 2 covers the northern portion of San Rafael. Trustee area 3 covers the southern portion of San Rafael. Trustee area 4 covers Ross, San Anselmo, Fairfax, and a part of Larkspur. Trustee area 5 covers the majority of Larkspur and Corte Madera. Trustee area 6 covers Mill Valley, Marin City, and Sausalito. And then trustee area 7 covers the western portion of the district, those coastal and rural areas, but also the western portion of Novato as well. I think just given what Zach Griggy has shared with us, and I think some of the reaction from board members at the last meeting, this particular scenario split up San Rafael fewer ways amongst fewer trustee areas, if that's the right way to term it. And so that I think is a distinguishing feature of this, the fact that it's really only split between trustee areas 2 and 3. You'll see that there is the blue outlines here. They can be a little cattywampus, but that includes the incorporated areas, and you'll see again, San Rafael, Fairfax, San Anselmo, Ross, all of those, the blue boundary shows you where those boundaries lie. I also have, like I said, I have an interactive map. So I'm going to stop my share momentarily here, and then I can zoom in on any area that would be helpful. Again, knowing that it's a little bit tricky to get the kind of detail you would want when you're covering such a large geographic area. And so again, this is scenario 3, and we've plotted that in this Google map format. The red stars indicate where the trustee areas, or, excuse me, where the trustees reside. Again, you will see that western portion of Novato, or excuse me, eastern portion of Novato covered by trustee area 1. The area, the unincorporated area in between, covered by trustee area 2, along with the northern portion of San Rafael. The southern portion covered in green here by trustee area 3. Trustee area 4 covering these areas, Ross, San Anselmo, Fairfax, and then just a portion of Larkspur down in here. Trustee area 5 covering those areas of Larkspur and Corte Madera. Trustee area 6 down in here, including Mill Valley, Marin City, and Sausalito. And again, trustee area 7 covering the coastal and mountainous regions, but then also crossing over into that western part of Novato. I can go now to scenario 4 and share that, and then come back to these again. I think it's helpful to kind of dive in a little bit deeper if that's helpful.
Let's go to 4 and see what we can do.
All right. And so this is scenario 4. This was, again, submitted through the District R application that the district signed up for and allowed folks to be able to create their own maps. I will note that there's aspects of this that I think are similar to the first 2 scenarios that cooperative strategies that we prepared. Just to recap that, the variance, the population variance meets the population balance requirement of 6.4%. The largest area is area 6. The smallest area is area 7. And then the largest concentration of a protected class is in area 3 at 12.7% for the Hispanic Latino voter demographic based on citizen voting age population. I will just note that Zach Griggy's scenario 3, it was also in area 3, and the highest concentration there was 15.3%, which was the largest of all 4 of these scenarios. And so those are the major highlights. Now, trustee area 1 covers the northern portion of Novato. Trustee area 2 covers southern Novato, and then also the northern and western part of San Rafael. Trustee area 3 covers eastern San Rafael. Trustee area 4 covers western San Rafael, Ross, San Anselmo, and Fairfax, as you can see here. Trustee area 5 covers the southwestern portion of San Rafael, Larkspur, and Corte Madera. Trustee area 6 covers Mill Valley, part of Marin City, and Sausalito. And then similar to scenario 2, trustee area 7 runs along the coastline all the way from the northern to the southern boundary of the district. And I will go back to our interactive map. And you can see how that lines up here. Again, trustee area 1 in yellow, trustee area 2 in red, trustee area 3 in green here, trustee area 4 in blue, wrapping around, trustee area 5 in pink, trustee area 6 down here in the tan or kind of orange color, and then trustee area 7 in the teal or aqua color here. So I think those are the main highlights for both of those new scenarios. Can I field any questions at this time? I can also return back to the registered voters by scenario as well, if that's helpful to discuss more.
Well, thank you, Justin. This has been very helpful. What is the board's pleasure as far as the discussion? I'm wondering if we want to sort of prioritize maps as to which ones we feel are should be in contention. That's just a thought I had. David, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I would recommend absolutely you discuss whether you want to eliminate a map or more. Just as far as like narrowing the time we would take to look at the specific lines. If folks see something that they don't like in any particular scenario, I'd recommend that happen first, so we can just narrow the process down. So.
All right, so I'll start with Diana and Paul, but I would like to poll everyone on the board. Diana?
I think that we've talked about scenario 2 before and the problems with it. I don't see that, at least from my opinion, hasn't changed about the problems with it. And I think scenario 4, it actually exacerbates that problem. It really chops up the Mill Valley area in a weird way, and it makes that one district like gigantic and is not reflective of those communities. It just lumps them all together. So in my mind, where I'm looking is either scenario 1 or scenario 3 and drilling down on that. That's just my personal.
Thank
place.
you. Paul, did you have comments?
Yes, I was thinking that, you know, in terms of our duty to the public, to our successors 10 years from now, and to ourselves right now, we really have to express the logic behind each one of the plans very clearly. And I think number 3 had the clearest logic. I think Zach Griggy really explained that he started with the natural topography of the county with the hills and the valleys, trying to keep the hilltops separating the valleys and the different districts, different areas, trustee areas, and also tried to respect the boundaries between the incorporated areas. And I think those were 2 very clear logical points that he expressed that I think we should value very highly. The third point is that as does scenario number 1, it keeps the current trustees in separate districts and avoids problems with the upcoming elections. So I'd like you know, anybody to respond. Did I get the logic correctly? And if I did, I think it does bring that plan out to the forefront from the others.
It might
Thank
be
you.
nice if you took 4 off and put on 3 or 1, because 4 does seem to have such a problem.
Thank you. So Suzanne, why don't you tell me your perspective on the 4 maps?
Thank you. I think that 4 is abysmal. It seemed to want to say how many ways can you chop up every city. I prefer 3. 1 has pluses. I thought that 2 and
So
4.
keeping 1 and 3 right now. All right. Thank you. Wandine?
I ditto Diana and Suzanne, and I think to some extent, Paul, that 1 and 3 is where we need to focus.
All right. Phil?
You got me just as I was trying to put my hand up. Good call. So yeah, I agree with those comments. I think map 3 that Zach Griggy did takes into consideration communities and natural geographic boundaries. Also takes into consideration where trustees live, by the way, too. And I think that's well balanced. The other one in particular that came up here doesn't do any of that.
So are you saying just 3, or would you like 1 and 3 in consideration?
Well, I think 3 is the closest one, but if somebody else wants to talk about 1, I'm happy to talk about 1, but 3 kind of dials it in, I think.
Okay, thank you. Eva? Do you have a preference for which of the 4 we keep in consideration? You're muted. Well, while we're waiting for Eva to get unmuted, I think I would echo what Paul has said as far as the logic of Zach Griggy's. I also think 1 is, I've had the same issues with dividing up Mill Valley and adding it into West Marin. It's very different demographic and huge geographical area that I don't think it necessarily benefits the county by doing that. So I would be in support of continuing conversations with 1 and 3. Eva, when you can get unmuted, we'll continue feedback from you, but Wandine, you had an additional comment?
I had a question. Last night I tried playing with, because I picked it up a couple of times and then realizing that it's kind of hard to really create your own, but I'm glad that Ziggy and the other, whoever it was, that put the time and energy into it. I think that was cool. And it was a great opportunity to try and see what you could do moving things around. And so I'm grateful for the interactive aspects of it. I was just wondering if it's possible to overlay 1 and 3 so we can see what those differences are. And that to me would be helpful.
Excellent. And while he's doing that, Eva got unmuted. So Eva, what is your preference as far as
My preference is to keep communities that are similar together. So when it went from trustee, I'm in one, right? Am I 1 or 3?
I'm sorry, you mean you as a trustee?
Right.
It depends on the map.
It depends on the map, right? Right now,
So the one.
you're in 5.
Yeah, the one
in-
that we worked on is trustee 1. We had the choice of 1 or 3, I think it was.
So maps 1 and 3 are your preference?
I like the fact that we're keeping part of southern Marin with the Ross Valley. Ross Valley has very special districts for water and waste management and so forth, along with working with San Rafael. And so they're natural partners. So Tiburon, Belvedere, and there's one small other, became part of the second choice that would be in the area that I would be serving. Does that make sense?
Okay, I'm just trying to get to which of the 4 maps you would like to keep into consideration.
I think it's, let's see. Who can help me tell me what number 3 is?
She did say 1 and 3 before.
We just looked at 1 and 3.
Okay, so that includes Strawberry and that whole area, which is a natural, the jurisdiction because they have other governing bodies that take care of other services for that area.
Okay, so I'm still trying to get to the answer. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can live with 1 and 3.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So it looks that there's unanimous consent from the trustees that maps 1 and 3 are the only 2 that are going to be considered. So I think 2 and 4, great. Thank you so much for whoever put together 4, and thank you to your team for putting together 2. But now the next question is, what additional information does anyone need from Justin in order, we won't be making the vote here, but is there any additional information that you need to inform your vote? Okay, sounds like, Wandine?
Well, I kept watching while Justin was doing things. Is it not possible to overlay them? And that's why you were going back and forth? Oh, I see. So you're toggling back and forth.
Wandine, I'm
Yeah.
actually trying to add in a layer to this map right now that will just apply the outlines of either scenario so we can lay them on top for easier visualization.
Great.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank you, Andrew.
if you give me about 2 or 3 minutes, I think I'll have that up and we can refresh it.
Sweet, thank you. So Wandine, can you hold off on any further question? while he
Yeah,
does that?
yeah, okay,
Okay,
sure.
all right, perfect. Paul?
This may become more visible when the manipulations of the 2 maps are completed, but I was just thinking to myself that map number 1 tends to divide up the Ross Valley a little more than map number 3. Map number 3 tends to keep it a little more together. And I'm just trying to think of whether there's any way we can succinctly express which communities are split more in number 1 and which communities are split more in number 3. It seems that Larkspur, Novato, and San Rafael are the 3 communities that get split the most.
Regardless, yeah, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
We'll see when Andrew gets those lines up. Diana?
Oh, just go. Am I still on mute? No. So just to say, I am, supportive of us talking about 1 and 3 and drilling down more, but just to make it clear that as we're talking, it's getting clear to me that my preference is number 3, but either is okay with me. So just letting you know that.
All right, thank you. Suzanne, do you have any other comments? You're muted.
No, it's pretty much ditto. I'd say the more I look at it, the more I'm happy with 3. I think that that young man has done an awesome job. And like Juan Dean, I also played around with it, trying to come up with my own, and it is difficult. I laud all of those who came up with maps.
And it'd be really a fascinating thing on his CV. He's not even out of college, and he's redistrict all of Marin. It's pretty amazing.
That's pretty amazing, isn't
And
it?
he did Novato, beautiful.
That's what I meant. So he College of Marin and Novato. Yeah. So, all right. What other conversation do we want to have? We have 7 minutes before the public hearing begins. What other discussion? Any other? And Paul, I really appreciate your comment about the logic of it. It needs to make sense relative to the demographics, to the geography, and to, you know, our future.
And we have to be able to express that.
Correct.
We need to be able to communicate that to other people who might ask us in the future. Okay, at your meeting, you chose this map. Why?
Correct.
So Trustee O'Brien, if I might, I wouldn't recommend rushing this part.
Oh, I'm
We just-
not
we
trying
just-
to.
No, we just can't start the public hearing before 5 PM. We can start it at 5:15 or 5:20 if we need to.
Understood.
Yeah. so there you
Understood.
go.
Thank you. Thank you. Trying to give Andrew as much time as he needs, because I'd really like to see that boundaries. It's kind of hard to tell here. Wandine.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of what I think is a little challenging with one, or maybe I think it's one instead of three, is the proximity of current trustees to the boundary lines. And that's okay, because we're not factoring, you know, the importance of assuring incumbency. It does look like some people may have to move in 10 years if they intended to continue serving. But I just think that to me, the part about Larkspur, Corte Madera, I kind of saw Belvedere, Tiburon as part of Southern Marin, and that's what I was playing with before. But I think that the stretch, one of them pulls Strawberry out of the Mill Valley one and into the Tiburon one. I think there's obviously some differences between the two as we get down to the difference in what's in the Ross Valley and what's not in the Ross Valley. And, you know, I think it's good. I think both 1 and 3 do a very good job. And I think just once we see the overlay, I think it's going to help us a lot.
Exactly. No pressure, Andrew.
I was just texting Justin to have him refresh it and let's see if it shows up.
Et voila.
Wow.
Can you zoom back a bit? There we go.
Okay, so Andrew, do you want to explain, or Justin, can you tell? I mean, we've got this set of lines represents what? 1 or 3?
So
This
the
set of line, let me make sure that I
Oh,
have.
yeah, the colors underneath are gonna, turn off the scenario 1 overlay, Justin. Do the little check mark right there. So the colors underneath are gonna be the scenario 1 boundaries that were proposed in scenario 1, whereas the red lines above are the scenario 3 proposed boundaries. So you can really
Gotcha.
see the difference here.
Excellent. I see. Okay, so like the Larkspur, Corte Madera in 1 goes a little bit higher. Did I have that right, or I have that backwards?
No, that's right.
Okay, so the colors are 1, the lines are 3.
That's correct.
All right.
And we can flop that if you prefer.
I'm sure, as long as we're clear on what it is.
Which is which now? The fat lines are which one?
Great.
So the colors represent scenario 1, and then
Okay,
the lines represent scenario 3.
okay. I like scenario 3 still.
And I kind of like scenario 1 only because what it does with San Rafael. Can we
Yeah,
go
I
a
was
little-
just looking at the San Rafael piece. too.
Yeah, can you go a little closer?
Sure.
So it has Los Ranchitos and Peacock. Well, no, Peacock's in same one. But the Los Ranchitos, the North San Rafael all together. But still, it breaks up the east side. Huh.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Not much of a choice because of population, I think.
Right.
So which of these two maps has the highest Latino population in District 3?
They're about the same, he said, I think.
Scenario 3 does at 15,
Versus
Uh,
14.
excuse me,
Not 3.
15.3%.
And
That's scenario 3. Scenario 1 has 13.5%.
Oh, that's significant.
And that, I think, is just a function of taking the east side of Novato and following that on down here.
Mhm.
And I think that what Andrew did in the first scenario was to try and keep more of Novato together here.
Uh-huh.
And that ultimately shapes everything else, sort of how it follows down. I think the two key emphases there were Novato and San Rafael. Again, that was just based on the feedback that we heard when we were redistricting for Marin County Office of Ed.
Wow, this is a very challenging decision.
Yeah, because the part about, I mean, Stephanie, maybe speak to the issue of communities of interest. He's taking Fairfax out of West Marin, and I mean, to me, that's something we would talk about, whether it was more appropriately connected. I mean, I think either one of these two, I mean, I'm comfortable with either one. I just think.
Yeah, from my perspective, actually, you've heard the expression over the hill, right? And
Right.
It's once you get over into San Geronimo Valley that people have that sense of West Marin, and that demographic is different from Fairfax. Fairfax is very different from Ross and San Anselmo, but the further west you go, I don't know how to describe us out here.
Because it's interesting, what I'm noticing is I kind of thought that we would do like north to, I mean, east to west, and it's more like it's north to south is how these districts are created. So I was thinking more like Corte Madera, Larkspur, Fairfax, Kentfield, Ross were one. And then so it's interesting, again, having done the interactive piece, I can see where the populations just aren't there to support keeping a lot of cities together.
I remember somebody told me once that Marin County, 90% of the population lives in 10% of the land, and the other 10% live in 90% of the land. So it's a challenge to divide it up.
I tried to do the same thing that Wandina apparently tried to do, to try to keep the whole Ross Valley together. And it was challenging. I mean, you push in a little bit here to keep this community together, and then you end up chopping another community apart. So I'm less critical about what happened, even though I live in the Ross Valley, and I would prefer it to be a little more together than map 3 shows. On the other hand, I appreciate the difficulties of doing that, and so I'm willing to live with map 3.
All right, do any other trustees have any other comments or thoughts that we want to discuss during this portion before we go into the public hearing?
I just think Zach just joined us so that you could know where we narrowed it down to 1 and 3.
Yeah, Zach, you might want to hear that your map is in the running. There's 2 maps in the running, and so far there's a heavy preference towards yours. So just so you know.
I want to make a comment about what got lost in the shuffle. The blue is part of San Rafael.
Correct.
Okay, so that let's see. Up through the hills, San Rafael. That part of San Rafael should go back to San Rafael, because they identify themselves in San Rafael and not with the Ross Valley. Now we have a water district and a sewer district that are represented by San Rafael, so that there's a common interest there. At the same time, we have Fairfax, which is very different from most of Ross. And then San Anselmo has a characteristic of its own. in terms of as a city, town city. Somewhere here, let's see, where is that last part? Diana, do you currently represent Sausalito?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
We all do.
Mhm.
We all represent all of Marin right now.
Yeah, right. Now, when you go past 1 and 3, is there any part of anyone's district that is in San Rafael that is not of community interest?
I don't follow your question.
Okay. There are parts of San Rafael that somebody's gonna be working with. My question is, there are parts of San Rafael that have characteristics of smaller towns. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And sometimes because of schools or community centers or whatever, they coalesce better because we don't break them up in segments. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah.
But
Well,
so just as a reminder, Eva, in this situation, you know, that the boundaries by which we draw these have so many different criteria that we need to take into consideration.
Yes.
And it's not as aligned with the special districts and the school districts and things as it is the overall population and the percentage of the different demographics. So no matter how we slice it to get them as even as possible, and as Justin mentioned, each one of these 7 districts is very even, is very close. I think we have a 6% variation between districts.
Yeah.
That's what we have to look at. So these 2 maps, both of those maps, these maps meet that requirement, and they just divide up the territory a little bit differently. The question is, will it really matter? You're going to have different demographics in every single district. I mean, every single area. So there's not one of these 7 that would be homogeneous.
Well, our preamble has to address the issue that with all this work, all of this work is not necessarily going to meet the bigger goal that the legislation has passed. In other words, we can try our best, but we can already see that, you know, where people choose to live is where they're living, right?
So I'm not sure what goal we're not achieving.
Well, we're not advancing diversity by any of the maps to speak of.
Well, I don't think the goal is to advance diversity. I think the goal is to give minority populations an opportunity to run and win a seat in these different institutions. And so the district with the largest population of Hispanics is area 3, which in both scenarios 1 and 3, I believe is over 42%. So that is a significant amount, which would give a great opportunity for an individual to be able to mount a campaign and to be elected within that area.
I think
Area
we
1 as well.
established early on that there's no way that there can be a district created in Marin that would assure majority. And on top of that, I believe the one with the greatest diversity is Diggy's map that would only be 15%. So 85% is still white in that district. So we
That's
can't
right.
even.
Well, that's
just
is that I'm sorry, I just want a point of clarification. Was that of voting population or was that of overall population?
That's voting population.
Thank you, because if you look at the charts that we were given, the 42% in trustee area 3 for map number 3, 43, this is very small print, 43% of overall population. And then an area number, or a map number 1, area number 3 has 42.4%. The next largest of overall population would be area 1 with in map number 1 is 24% and map number 3 is 27%. Okay, so we're able to create at least 3 districts with more than 15% of the overall population of at least the Hispanic population. So either map gets us much closer to being able to have the opportunity for 2 representatives on the board from that demographic. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to clarify. Is there any other conversation we should have before opening the public?
You can always
Well,
have conversation after the public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, let's move to the public hearing then, David.
Actually, Trustee O'Brien, you need to call the public hearing to order.
Right. I was just
Oh, yeah.
gonna do that. That's
Okay.
yes. Okay, so
Take your gavel at hand.
I was looking for something.
A
Look at-
hairbrush or whatever you have might find.
Knock
there. It's all
wood.
good.
Thank you. So I am gaveling to order the 5th district public hearing regarding the draft maps and adoption of Marin County College's district maps at 5:09 p.m. Clonk, clonk. All right. So this is an opportunity for additional conversation by the board and anyone from the public who would like to weigh in.
And I would recommend members of the public just unmute yourself and identify so we can identify you because we can't see everybody on one screen. So
Well, I think I can see everybody. I don't see anybody other than Zach who is from the public and our consulting team. Oh, Anne, of course, is with us. Anne, did you have any comments you'd like to make?
Not at this point. Thank you, Stephanie.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sorry, technical difficulty.
Zach, did you want to make a comment?
He just said he had some mechanical technical difficulties.
Okay. So if there are, Paul, yes.
Yeah, I think this would be a great opportunity to offer some congratulations. I want to congratulate our consultants for showing us the great utility of GIS. And as a proud graduate of the College of Marin's GIS program, I really appreciate it when something that we learned in the classroom can be shown so visibly to have a very important practical application. But also I wanted to thank Mr. Zach Griggy for his diligence and tremendous creativity that he's donated to the college. And I think he's also shown us how the GIS can help people as they pursue their careers.
Oops.
And so I hope that he would continue to stay in touch, let us know how his career progresses and how many wonderful opportunities there are in the big wide world of GIS.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Wandine.
Well, mine was really just, but going back to with the overlay of the 2, that I thought there was value in keeping the Los Ranchitos and Santa Venetia areas together, which is what Zach's map did versus scenario 1. It does elongate what would, forgive me, Paul, for calling it your district, but it does elongate that one more so. But it just seemed for the San Rafael, we don't have anyone really, I mean, Phil's northern San Rafael, but the downtown central San Rafael folks, I think they would say that Los Ranchitos and Santa Venetia and Northgate are still kind of central central San Rafael, and that you get the further north, the Marinwood, all of those Lucas Valley areas as kind of a separate mindset for folks. But that was really the main thing I saw, the difference in the San Rafael areas.
All right, thank you. Phil?
Given that I live in this area and the way Zach laid it out, I think it's actually quite the opposite. I mean, Los Ranchitos and Northgate and all that is very much part of the same community. And, I've been living here since late 80s. And so I know very much the community and it is a part of it. So when you take that into it and the way he did that, along with where the geography lays out in terms of the hills and the valleys, I think he tied that together well for this particular scenario and also this particular area.
All right, thank you. So if there are no other comments, we will close the hearing.
Well, maybe the hearing hasn't had the interactive comparison. I think it would be important for.
Sure.
Stephanie, I thought you did a great summary during the work that we did together before the public hearing. Maybe you could share that kind of information.
And perhaps, Andrew, you could bring up the overlay while she's doing that.
Yes, do you mean as far as the effort of the redistricting and what our goals are?
Yes, right.
Okay, so the intention, I'll try to remember what I said, it was so long ago. The intention is to equally divide the population of the county of Marin into 7 fairly equal groupings. And I'm just wanting to, let me see. Okay, we don't have, there we go. It's up on the screen now. And by doing so, we are trying to help create areas that give opportunities to underrepresented individuals within the county to be able to have enough of their own communities behind them to run for election and to gain a seat on this board. I'm not sure if that covers everything that you were looking for, but we have some parameters that we've been looking at. And both of these maps accomplish them in different ways, but they accomplish them by creating two areas, excuse me, that provide a large percentage, more than 25% of the Hispanic population in each of those districts. Paul, your hand is up. Did you have additional, or can you?
Oh, yes, I thought that just before we close the public hearing, because the author of one of the maps is is with us, if we could invite him to once again express the logic behind his map, because again, I think we do have to be able ourselves to have this logic very clear. And my understanding from our last meeting was that his map was based on the topography of the hills and valleys that naturally form different Marin communities, and then the boundaries, the political boundaries of the cities and towns. And we've also talked about the 15% Latino voters in District 3. And I just wondered if he wanted to add anything else, if we could invite him to do that.
But I gave him that opportunity. Oh, great. Okay, Zachary, do we have the technical issues resolved?
Yeah, sorry, my Wi-Fi was a little bit finicky.
No worries, no worries. So just to recap, we're only considering maps 1 and 3 at this point. And what Justin has up on the screen is the colored lines represent map number 1, and the red lines represent map number 3. And that was so we could see the contrast between the two of them. If there's anything you want to add about your map that you would like in the public hearing to be said that wasn't said in the last public hearing.
Yeah, right. I'd be happy to shine a bit more of a light on the methodology that I use to develop the map. I mean, I can start over in District 1, which was the first district I drew. I grew up in Northern Santa Fe and Novato. And so, Novato has in 2019, basically every single one of Novato's special districts went to district-based elections, which created a very confusing patchwork of district lines. The water district has its own lines, the sanitary district has its own lines, the school district has their own lines, the city council has their own lines. So in Novato, where it's impossible to keep the entire city together due to population constraints, I really tried to follow one of the more widely known district lines, in this case, the city council districts, to make sure that the district lines were recognizable. This also had the benefit of keeping downtown Novato in a district with the rest of the city, because downtown is a very important part of Novato. It's basically the city's core. And so I felt it was very important to keep it in with Novato. And then as a result, council districts 1 and 2, which are more the western part of the city, get put in a district with West Marin. This was to balance population and also to, in recognition of the fact that, Novato used to be an agricultural town and also has a road that connects it to West Marin in the form of Novato Boulevard. And kind of moving down to Santa Fe, I grew up in Santa Venetia and kind of near the Civic Center when I was younger. I went to Venetia Valley Elementary and middle school. And so I know the area is, very distinct from, say, if you go north of Big Rock Ridge to Novato, it's very different. If you go south to, say, Peacock Gap or Dominican, it's very different. So I really tried to, keep the area between San Pedro Mountain and Big Rock Ridge together as much as possible. And then moving to District 3, I was involved in the Marin County redistricting process as a member of the ad hoc working group there. And so I really tried in drawing District 3 to include the areas that the Canal Alliance had been pushing to include in Supervisor District 4 at the time in District 3. So you'll notice that it includes the it includes the Lincoln Avenue corridor in District 3, including the apartments west of sandwiched between Lincoln Avenue and Prospect Drive. I can't remember the street suffix for that. Basically corresponding very similarly to the supervisor districts there along Lincoln Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And then District 4 was intended to unify the Ross Valley in a single district and minimize splits to the towns of San Anselmo and Ross. And then I also tried to, when I draw districts, I also try to avoid pairing incumbents where I can. And in this case, it was possible to avoid pairing incumbents and avoiding, a head-on-head based election in the future. So I did take that opportunity. District 5 was intended to unify the Twin Cities as best as possible, as well as pairing it with the Tiburon Peninsula, which is connected through Paradise Drive. And then District 6 is intended to keep Mill Valley whole and pair it with Homestead and Tamalpais valleys, as well as Marin City and Sausalito. As I mentioned at the previous hearing, Marin is a series of valleys, and so I tried to be as cognizant as possible of the fact that there are these ridge lines that make very clear dividing lines, particularly in central and southern Marin, where it's not one big valley like Novato is. And so I really tried to use natural boundaries where possible, and if not, use political boundaries such as city lines, city council lines that people would be more likely to recognize. And if all else failed, try to use main streets. Unfortunately, though, the map isn't perfect. Like in Santa Fe, unfortunately, the West End neighborhood ended up getting split because of census block geographies. It was not possible to keep the neighborhood together, which is, really unfortunate. But I tried to keep the division along a main road, in this case, 4th Street, so that it would be recognizable and so that to minimize the chance for voter confusion. So I've rambled long enough.
That's good.
I hope that clarifies kind of what my decision-making process was in making this map. And I'd love to hear any questions that anybody, trustees, the audience might have.
Very helpful. Thank you, Zach. Since the trustees have heard that before, is there anyone else from the audience or the public would like any clarification from Zach? All right. Any other comments or thoughts before we close the public hearing?
I have a question. I don't see Greenbrae on the map, whereas before it was evident. Am I missing something? Oh, here it is. And what district is that in?
I think that's 4.
District 4 is the blue.
Okay, Wandine, you had a question?
I was curious if you could do the overlay again for Suzanne to see Novato, how you felt about how that's divided up. There, it's kind of like the difference of north, south, east, west. And I just thought from your perspective, I'd be curious.
You speaking to Zach?
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense, actually. It largely goes down 101. It keeps everybody on the east side of Novato together. And it does also help to, it does follow more of the city council maps. So it seems very logical to me. And as he said, we're used to Western Novato being cut off to the supervisor districts. So this
Well,
seemed.
where I was going is, I think Indian Valley campus, I can't tell if it's in, whether it's in one or two. So I was just wondering. So
It's
It's
in
in
one.
one.
It's in
It's
one.
in- Okay, so for both maps, it's in one. Okay.
Yes, well, I think so.
No.
Oh, the other one is north, right. I like
so
3 better,
This is 3.
a number of reasons, yes.
Yeah, I think in scenario 1, that would be in trustee area 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
But is it in scenario 3? Is it in Novato or is it in West Marin?
It looks like it is in both. It's in the same, in both. So what is this, Justin, the line that goes through the word Indian Valley? There we go.
So this is scenario 3 right now, and you'll see
Okay.
that the Indian Valley campus is in trustee area 1, and then I'll flip to scenario 1. You can
It's in-
see that.
Yeah, it's in 3 then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the Indian Valley campus then in
Or
the
number 2.
scenario 3 is actually in the San Rafael district.
So we're looking at scenario 1, and that is in the trustee area number 2.
That's right.
Right. So if you go back to scenario number or map number 3, then it is in number 1.
I want to go back to.
So I
Green-
just want to be clear though, for Suzanne,
Thank you.
is
Thank you. I
in
appreciate
both
it.
scenarios, I mean, my understanding is Indian Valley campus is in 2 different areas in the 2
Right.
different scenarios.
Correct.
San Rafael.
And so IVC is not in Novato in scenario 3?
One.
Scenario 1.
Okay, okay.
All right.
But that's okay.
Eva, did you have a question?
Yeah,
just-
I want to
just
go
some-
back to Green Bay in 1 and Green Bay in 3. They identify with Kentfield, Green Bay interests. The schools are in Kentfield or parts of not much in San Rafael. And they do some inter-district attendance cases, but they try to avoid it because of crowding of classrooms. So when I look at, let's see where,
So Green Bay is in the same district or same area regardless of the map. 1 or 3.
one,
That's correct.
one and 3.
Correct. So it won't make any difference.
Okay, got it.
But if we could look closer, is the Kentfield campus is divided between 2 districts?
Well, yes, it's the same thing happens in this one that. So 1 is the colors, correct, Justin?
No, actually, scenario 3 is the colors.
Okay. So scenario 3 is the colors that would end up in trustee area
Area
4.
Yep.
And then in scenario 1, it would end up in trustee area, I think, 5.
That's correct.
Zach, you had a comment?
No.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that the rationale for the split on scenario 3 in this case is that it appears, at least looking at it on the map, that the College Marin athletic fields are kind of bisected by the Larkspur city lines, which is where you see that kind of angular
Yeah, yeah,
just southeast of the Woodlands Market.
right.
And then the split to the campus west of, I'm blanking on the street, College Avenue, is due to the fact that I was trying to follow the natural barrier of Cornadera Creek.
Uh-huh.
This also has the added benefit of essentially minimizes a precinct split for the county elections department, where the precinct line for this area basically follows Cornadera Creek, then goes down College Avenue to the Larkspur City line. So by using that boundary, it minimizes the work of the county elections department to create a new precinct.
Oh, I
I like that.
That's good advice. I mean, good input. Thank you. All right, do we have anything else that we would like to discuss? So I recommend that we close the hearing at 5:29. Knock wood. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Andrew, very much for your time. And thank you, Zach, again, for doing such a great job and spending so much time on this very important issue for the County of Marin. We really appreciate it.
Terrific. So at this point in time, I would ask David Saldani just to say from here, where would he go from here in this meeting? We don't take a recommendation here, or what happens next?
So at the next phase of this, now that we've had the public hearings, we appear to be coalescing around a map. We would agendize this for approval of a final map.
Don't
Pardon?
we have that?
Is that tonight?
I do believe we have that. That's H2.
Yeah, we do have that. So
Perfect. So we have that resolution, and then once that's signed and approved, we will transmit that information to the California State Board of Governors for the community college districts. They have oversight in this process through the block bill, which we had a hand in preparing back in 2011. So it's a little bit of a different process for community college districts. It does go to the Board of Governors, but we will make that transmittal. And once that is approved, logistically, what happens next is that the demographer will then transmit the shape files to the registrar of voters so that that can be populated in their system, so that on the next election cycle, they'll know, which precincts the ballots for which seats are going to go to. And also a transmittal will be made to the county committee, Marin County, the county board, because they maintain all of the boundaries, including voting districts of all of the K-14 districts within the county. So those are the actions that will happen after tonight. They're mostly just administrative behind the scenes actions. It doesn't really involve or implicate the decision-making of this board. Your decision is made tonight, and after that, it's just execution on our end to make sure that everything has happened. Once we have confirmation that everything's been approved and submitted, we will, of course, circle back with your chancellor, who will then probably give you an information update at that point, just confirming that all the steps have been taken.
So David, my question, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing myself, is under H2, we have the resolution to adopt a map. Is that where a trustee would make a motion
For a specific map.
Okay. Okay, so just noted trustees that under H2, somebody needs to step up and make a recommendation or a motion for either map 1 or 3.
Excellent.
And
Okay.
requires a majority vote only, does not require unanimous.
Okay,
Terrific. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, David.
thank you. All right,